Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Gals podcast, the podcast where we reconnect to who we were before the world got their hands on us. I'm your host, Molly Smith, and this week we are back chatting with Karen Sugrue. What a woman. If you listened to last week's episode, myself and Karen talked about all things trans rights, activism, etc. Fabulous episode. I absolutely loved talking to Karen, if you couldn't tell. If you listened, you know how much I loved that episode. This week, we are actually discussing the topic that we came to discuss in the first place. If you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that the conversation that we had last week, as rich and incredible as it was literally only us talking, stumbling along topics that meant a lot to both of us and getting each other's point of view, which was really great. Now, this week, we're back with the episode around the research that Karen is conducting on the topic of women complaining in the workplace. We know from research, and as we will learn from Karen, that there are huge issues with misogyny and sexism in the workplace, all across the public sector, especially in education. We know of several other areas of the working population in our country where there are huge issues of sexism and misogyny, assault on women in the workplace. Yeah, you heard me. When Karen said this to me, I thought my jaw was never going to return to its natural position. I was just mouth open, aghast at what I was hearing. So this is a really important episode. It's really important that we highlight the topics that women are facing so that we can improve them. We can't change what we won't acknowledge, and we are most certainly acknowledging this. So I'm going to leave you with the episode to listen to Karen talking about when women complain. What's important to know is the first few minutes of the episode is me and Karen returning from a walk. We were just stretching our legs after chatting for over an hour, and we were just taking a little break before we got back into the topic at hand. So I hit record and we put our mics back on, and the conversation that we were having was around our belief systems. Karen, when we were on our walk, Karen had shared her belief system with me, and we were kind of talking about the similarities between those. And when we returned, we were kind of chatting around my belief system, what do I believe in? What would I worship if there was a thing to worship, And I obviously am very happy for everyone to believe what they believe, and I don't think anyone's is more important than the others, but we were talking about my belief system and I thought it was an interesting part of the episode, so I kept it in. So for the first few minutes you will hear a discussion on my belief system and, well, our belief system, maybe a bit of Karen's, a bit of mine, and then we get into the topic. So that's just to give you a bit of context as to why we just start talking about nature and the majesty of nature and how natural it is for us to breathe what nature is breathing, So anyway, you'll hear all of that and then we get into the topic. So I really hope you enjoyed the episode. I love this episode. I'm very passionate about this episode. I want women to live in a world where we have gender equality. I want women to live in a world where we are safe to go for runs, to go places on our own with people, to be in relationships. And I want a world where we are safe to go and earn a living without being harassed, bullied or assaulted in the workplace. That's what I want. So without further ado, here's the episode, and thanks so much for listening, gals, as always. Talk to you at the end. I think if there was anything that I would worship, it would be nature, like when I go to the forest and I do my little things, I have my crystals and I don't really know what I'm doing with the crystals, but I find Same. That I find them gorgeous little symbols of like it's a ritual in the sense that I put them out. Yeah. I sit down, it's my task, my little ritual task that I do when I sit down. I put out my crystals, I make them look nice, so I put them in a circle, I put them in a line. I have my little candle, I have my little sage. And before I know it, I'm after grounding myself and I haven't really I haven't really said, okay, now I'm going to ground myself, No. It has happened naturally through the process of that. And if I was to believe in anything, I don't think that there is anything more powerful than nature, So when I go to the forest, it's like praying, like I talk to the trees. I especially like when I hold like forest gatherings now to bring more women into nature and to to just get women understanding that, like, sometimes the price of growth is silliness, you know? So you might feel a bit silly, a bit embarrassed or whatever talking to a tree, but there is
so important whimsy and joy.
Yeah, and there's a loveliness in, I always say, like, when we sit down, I ask women to go to a tree that they feel drawn to, and I say, before we ask the universe, nature, God, whatever your belief system is, we're going to tell this tree about a group that are suffering, and we're going to tell the tree how that group is suffering and what we possibly think might help them, and trust that if the trees are connected by, like, this underground network of roots and mycelium and all that message will be carried where it needs to go, you know. So that's my version of saying a prayer. So often I speak for Black women to the tree, because I know their struggle to the extent that I have heard it. I haven't lived it, so I couldn't say, oh, I know what it is to be a Black woman. I'm sure I have no fucking idea, you know. But I like to send whatever kind of ideas I have their way in through that little network or that way of talking to things, and that's my way that I kind of put hope out to the universe or to nature, or, you know, for that message to be carried to where it needs to go. And that's something that I enjoy believing in, you know. Faith is obviously you don't know, so it is just hoping that that's kind of what's happening, but it gives me some sort of solace in knowing that, like, I'm sending good vibes to them, or I'm acknowledging their experience and sending something their way that might be, you know.
Like, to me, you can't go wrong with that, because I mean, there's solid science behind the power of ritual, the power of meditation, the power of grounding. There's really good science, med science as well. And so, like, whether and I do those rituals as well, and I get a huge amount out of doing them, and in the same way, and I do, like, little setting intentions and all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of science that says that those things are very good for, you know, solid reasons. But I just wonder, have those things come from older wisdom that knew it was good for us to do those? You know, and whether we call it prayer or spell work or
whatever the title label is,
literally, to me, does not matter. It's this idea that we believe in ourselves, we believe in nature, we believe in each other, you know, and we're and I love that idea about sending it, you know, the it's mycelium, is it? I love that idea. I think that's gorgeous. And just putting it out into the universe, whatever that is. I love it.
And whichever way it's taken, you know, like
trusting it that the
like
universe
we're sitting around trees that are breathing like us, but they're giving us what we need and we're giving them what they need. Like, they take in the carbon dioxide and give us oxygen. Like, if that's not where we're meant to be, you know, like,
could not agree more.
If I'm going to a place that is breathing in what I'm breathing out, like, we are breathing together, how is there anything more?
Could not agree more.
Do you know, like,
100%.
And no children were harmed in the making of it.
Exactly.
There was no men, you know, like,
a lovely, beautiful. Couldn't agree more.
It's as kind of fundamental as it gets, the exchange, you know. So that's I love that. I love going to the forest. So if there was anything, it would be nature.
Yeah, me too.
Nature and women. I don't think there's a better combo.
That's witchcraft.
Wow. Is that that's what they call witchcraft? Is that's women in nature. Women. Fucking hell.
And women being, I suppose, a profound part of nature, because obviously women's bodies have the potential to give life. And I don't know, did I bring this other book? I did, actually. Did you read this?
When God Was a Woman. No, I didn't, Gal.
You would love that, and now that's only there by accident, but you would love it because it looks at historical evidence that the original gods were all women.
I would get on board with that.
I tell you, once you read that, you'll be like, yeah, that makes absolutely, like, why would a god be anything other than a woman when literally women's bodies give life? You know,
what is this whole thing about Adam's rib? What the fuck is that?
Fucking seriously, when you really dig down into some of that shit, it's mental. It is mental.
We came from Adam's rib. How, like, that's what are you talking about?
There is literally a body. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, women.
Of course.
The minute you see it, you're like, obviously. Yeah. But it takes, because we've been so indoctrinated by the patriarchy.
Yes.
So they don't even want us to think these things, but once you start thinking about how powerful we are in ourselves and in community with other women, then it gets dangerous.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, they don't like it.
They fucking don't like it.
No.
They really don't.
No. Okay, right. So, Karen Sugrue, one of the reasons that we came together today was to talk about your incredible research around why women complain. You're doing a piece of research around sexism in the workplace, how it shows up, why it's showing up, the outcomes for women, with the intention to what?
Okay, so it started because I experienced this. As all good research does, the political is personal and the personal is political. So I experienced fairly significant sexism, and I brought it to the attention of my line manager, my boss. Okay.
Was this in your position as a psychotherapist?
No. So this was in the political work that I do.
Okay.
And so I didn't identify anybody, but what I did do was go to the kind of hierarchy and say, there is a culture of sexism, and could we please do something about it? And I provided a pile of evidence from around the world, including a report that I'd co-authored myself about Irish politics. And what came back to me was, one of the results is that I was suspended from the organisation. Now, this was I volunteer, so it's not my paid work.
Okay.
So for me, and we've talked about my kind of privilege, so at least I can pay my mortgage and so on. Unlike a lot of the women that I have been talking to.
Yes.
So my experience from that made me very angry, as you can imagine, and I was isolated and I was shamed really deeply, and a lot of kind of things occurred around it, and suddenly I was the complaints process was weaponized against me, and so I thought it was just me, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, and it brought up a huge amount of trauma and distress, and even though I am 50, I've really good supports around me, I was really traumatized.
Wow.
But I'm a psychotherapist, and I know that one of the strongest, most powerful tools against trauma and shame are two words, and they are Me Too. So if you can speak your shame and speak your trauma, and somebody goes, oh my God, me too, then it quietens that shame, and it gives you power over it. So I took a risk and I put something online. I didn't identify anything, but I just said, this situation is happening in a political space, and I put it out there. Has anybody experienced anything like this? And I imagined that people in political spaces would come back to me because I'd read the research and I know it happens. What came back was a absolute tsunami of women from across the public sector. I mean, I'm still shocked at what came back. The most enormous number of contacts, and for a finish, what I found was, what I got was women from the Gardaí, women across the health sector, women from social care, women from the ambulance sector, women in the prisons, huge number of women in education.
Wow,
huge
really?
Number, huge.
Wow.
In second level, in higher ed, absolutely enormous numbers.
Experiencing sexism and misogyny in the workplace.
Yes.
Wow.
Enormous numbers coming from the unions. Enormous numbers in politics, enormous numbers in say, around politics, like the local government, and so basically across the public sector. So everybody who contacted me is in some part of the public sector. And that's not to say that people in the private sector aren't experiencing this. I absolutely know that they are, because I've read the literature. But what came back and what really surprised me was that this is endemic across the public sector. And so that really gave me pause, because I thought, wow, well, I had no idea. I knew it was in politics. And then I thought, well, I also knew it was in education, because I'm in education. I said, I've seen that and I've heard this. And I said, ooh. So I started doing a little bit of digging, and I found a team in UL who have been really researching this very heavily for the last 5 years. A brilliant team.
Brilliant.
magnificent. So they have done an enormous work on this happening in education and third level education.
Okay. Is this a mix? The team is it a mix of women and men, or is it women?
As the only people I know on the team are women.
Right.
Can't say that there's no men there, but the only ones I know are women.
Okay.
So as far as I know, it's an all-women team. Their work is so powerful that at the moment they have worked with the government, the HEA, which has released and is asking everybody in third level at the moment to do a national survey about bullying, harassment in third level. So that's data that's been gathered at the moment.
Who's the HEA?
The HEA is the Higher Education Authority.
Okay.
So that means that in our every higher level teacher at the moment and every member of staff across the board in their inboxes right now is a survey. So if you are working in third level, if you are working under the HEA and you've got that, please reply, because one of our biggest tools in the fight against this kind of stuff is data. So if the HEA get a lot of responses back in relation to this with stories, and I strongly suspect they will, and in fact I know that they will, they will be forced to do something. So in terms of political activism, that's huge. So that team in UL and lots of other teams, but that's the one that I know of.
And you didn't know they exist, this team in UL, until
I started looking. Yeah, and this is the power of when women speak and when women speak to each other.
Thank you for your work.
Oh my God, no, but this is
your work.
And thank you for this, because I do it, the team in UL do a bit, I do a bit, you do a bit, and we pass it forward to, and around, and this is how we make change. So that team have been enormously successful in alerting the government to the extent of the problem in education. So I thought, okay, so, we know it's happening in politics, we know it's happening in education. What's happening in the ref? What is going on? All of these women, and what really amazed me, and that's not the right word, but every woman I spoke to had, no matter where they were, whether they were in the prisons, whether they were in the ambulance service, in the unions, in education, right across the board, they were talking about the same set of things. The first thing that would happen would be isolation.
Okay.
So they'd be isolated.
At what point?
So
when they raise it.
Something would happen, and that they would go to a superior.
Why don't we actually tell me what is happening? Let's talk about, first of all, what they're experiencing. When we talk about the experience in sexism and misogyny in the workplace, what are they reporting they're experiencing? And then we'll talk about then what is happening when they go to report it.
So it is across the board. It's a spectrum. So it ranges from assault. So a number of the women I spoke to were assaulted by their colleagues at work.
Sexually assaulted?
Sexually assaulted by their male colleagues at work. There's a lot of bullying of a gendered nature. There is a lot of, and I can see your mouth hanging open, this is happening every day. The sexual assault cases, when they went to their superior.
I thought we were speaking about comments.
I mean, we are.
Assault is that prevalent?
This is happening, and nobody is doing anything about it.
Oh my God.
So there is assault, there is harassment, there is toxic in work environment, there is bullying, it's happening across the board. And so you've got the thing that happens, and then you've got the person that it happens to. And as a person that it happens to, you think, okay, well, something bad has happened to me. So I know what's going to happen next. I'm going to go to, I'm going to activate the system.
Yeah.
And the system will protect me because it's there to protect me.
Because that's the right thing to do.
That's how things should be.
Yeah.
And that's the right thing to do. So you go and you activate the system. What happens next is the problem. So obviously something bad has happened. But what happens next is the piece that I'm trying to get a handle on. So what should happen is that the person should be supported. Now, Sarah Ahmed, this is what her books talk about.
Yes.
Because this is what she experienced. You do not get the support. What happens instead is that you become the problem. And she identified this in universities in the UK and is still working in that space. But she has broadened it out. And what we are seeing across the public sector, if you complain about something, you become the problem. and then you are dealt with as if you are the problem, not the person who did the thing originally. And then a pile of strategies and tactics are brought in. So the aim is to silence the person who has made the complaint, to contain it, and to serve as a warning.
Wow.
To other people, don't complain, don't make a fuss, don't step outside.
It works.
And it works.
Yeah.
And how does that operate then on the ground to the woman? What does it look like? It looks like being isolated. It looks like your friends and colleagues being afraid to be seen to talk to you in the workplace.
Wow.
It looks like a complaints process. Suddenly, although you made a complaint, suddenly a complaint has been made about you. What's very interesting as a psychotherapist is that's Darvo. So Darvo, as you and your listeners know, then is deny, attack, reverse victim offender. So all of a sudden, they're the victim,
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what? And there's gaslighting, and there's toxic work environment. And then there's another, there's layers of how they deal with you. There's shaming kind of activities. You are cut out of information being, so you're not invited to meetings perhaps, or you don't get that report, or you hear afterwards that there was a social event, but you weren't invited. There's so many layers to this, but it's all insidious and all disgusting.
Yeah.
But one thing that is particularly damaging to women particularly is reputational damage caused by gossip and rumour spreading. Now that is something that has been identified for decades. For decades. There's a Norwegian sociologist from the early 1970s who identified all of these things as master suppression techniques. Things that could be used in environments by a dominant person to keep their position of dominance. So, this isn't new stuff, but it is being used in kind of new ways. Now, everything I've just described to you there is, and I presume we're all familiar with the Women of Honour. So the women...
No, this was one of my questions. Tell me about Women of Honour.
So Women of Honour are women in the armed services in Ireland who were raped, sexually assaulted by their
Was
colleagues.
there a documentary about this a few years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years ago?
It was I think it came out I thought 10 years ago, but when I looked it up there before I came, it's like 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was an RT documentary. Now, it has been in the ether for about 10 years because there was a whistleblower who did a wonderful piece of work, and it's only because of that whistleblower's work that the Women of Honour were able to come together. Because one of the biggest things with the Women of Honour and with every woman that I spoke to is what they do first and foremost is they isolate you. So you don't know that it has ever happened to anybody else.
Yeah.
And they want you to think it's your fault. In the same way that the patriarchy always tells us it is our fault when things happen. That then happens in an organisational level. So very often, they might have to sign an NDA. They are told not to talk to anybody about this because there's a process in place. I know your listeners are going to really identify with this because if there's a process in place and you can't talk about it, how are you going to get support? And how are you going to find out that this process is happening to a lot of people?
Yeah.
So when you think you are on your own and you're the only person this has happened to, when they bring in the narrative that you're difficult, you're more likely to believe it.
Yeah.
Now, we see parallels to this exact process when we're working with victims of intimate partner violence and domestic violence, because they think it's their fault. They come in and they sit down with the likes of me and they say, well, that, I made him angry, or I shouldn't, I knew that if his, whatever, and I did this, I knew he would. And they have, because they don't see that they are part of a system, they think it's just them.
Yeah.
And we are psychologically susceptible to being told it's just us. It's our fault because we live in a world that tells us we can't believe our own hunger, we can't believe our bodies, we can't believe our pain, nobody else believes our pain.
Yeah.
We're told we're hysterical,
Yeah.
we're told we're hormonal, we're told we're unhinged, we're psychos, and then we're told we're difficult.
Yeah.
So at work, if somebody says and then you go, oh, okay.
And we're told that women are those things. So then we're like, if I say this, they're gonna put me as one of them women, and I'm not one of them women. I'm really telling the truth.
I'm better than those difficult women.
Yeah, because we've believed that the women before us were difficult, but actually they weren't.
The narrative of you're not like other girls.
Yeah.
See?
I've heard that a few times.
And the thing is, we have a moral imperative now to really deconstruct that, because I want to be like every other girl.
Yeah, I am.
I am like every
I am
other
every
girl.
other woman.
Do not separate me from the pack,
Yes.
because the pack are my support group. I am them, they are me. And if you start to tell me I'm different to them, then that is the biggest red flag.
Yeah.
So
what's so interesting in a lot of Healing Gals episodes is we discuss how little time we as women take to just come back to ourselves. This is why this season's sponsor, Dara Mats, felt so aligned. Because it's not just a yoga mat, it's an anchor point. Something your body begins to recognise as, this is where I come back to myself. And what's beautiful is it's not something that you're constantly replacing or upgrading. They are durable and built to last as a one-time purchase. They're made of non-toxic rubber, they're machine washable, and the imagery and artwork on them is absolutely stunning. They feature artwork and imagery from Irish landscapes and captivating ocean scenes. So even visually, you're stepping into something that invites calm and presence, and maybe even a sense of home. And I think when you're on a healing journey, having those small physical anchors, it really matters. So if you're building more intention into your life, your rituals, your practices, you can explore Dara Mats at daramats.com. And Healing Gals podcast listeners get a discount. Put Healing12 into the promo box at the checkout and get yourself 12% off your very own Dara Mat. Now, back to the episode.
That's what organisations are doing. They are separating us from our pack so that we cannot talk to each other. And the patriarchy did this to women several hundred years ago by telling us that we shouldn't be in community with women. We shouldn't share, because sharing, they called it gossip, but sharing stories was a form of safety. If we knew that so-and-so down the road was a dangerous person to women, then we would avoid that way. But if we cannot talk to each other, if we don't believe each other, if we're told that, you know, oh, well, she only said that because she's a difficult woman, so we don't believe the danger, then we are going to walk down that road and we're going to be, and then if we try to talk about it, we're difficult too.
Yeah.
And so there is a narrative in patriarchy that has separated us from each other. We're jealous of each other, cat fights, all of those things. Oh, she just wants my man, or whatever nonsense it is, you know, that will separate us because we're told to be suspicious of other women. And then young women are told to be suspicious of older women. Older women are told, you know, this nonsense that we're jealous of younger women. All of these things is designed to separate us so that we're not talking to each other and sharing our wisdom.
I hadn't heard it put together like that. I have heard like, you know, the competition thing, and I speak on my podcast or my Instagram or whatever about, like, you know, that we've been conditioned into competition. But I haven't thought about it like the older women have been told that the younger women are coming for their men, or the younger women are slutty, or, you know, whatever. The younger women are told the older women are like they're you know, they're just jealous of you, and they're very judgy, like stay away from them, whatever. But in doing all of that, we're separating the wisdom from the younger ones. And so we're all going through the exact same cycle again and again, because we're not connected and sharing the wisdom.
And studies of mammals show that mammals that have menopause, and there are very few mammals that have menopause. I think it's only maybe 2 or 3 different species, and we are one of them. But those species are matriarch. So the idea is that menopause allows us a period of time where we are not procreating. We are sharing wisdom. And we are story holders, wisdom holders.
Gal, I got this tattoo. It's the Irish word for matriarch.
Oh my God, it's absolutely...
Isn't it so beautiful?
Magnificent.
I love it so much because I adore the fact of matriarchy, you know, and the fact of being a matriarch and our role as matriarchs, you know.
I do too. It's so powerful. And it is a terrible source of grief, I think, to every one of us. This idea that we cannot age, that we cannot have like a purpose after a particular age, that we should disappear, that we should be ashamed. It's a terrible thing, and it's a loss to us. It's a loss to the generation coming up behind us, because, as you said, they just go the same. Nothing ever changes
Yes.
once if the wisdom is taken. And so your listeners are probably going, what has this to do with complaining at work?
They're not. They're loving it. They're. I can tell you now, they haven't thought that once.
Well,
they're like, this is exactly the way I want to hear this. Yes.
This is so important.
Yeah.
The idea that as a thread of, and Mona Elatawi talks about patriarchy being like an octopus with tentacles, and one of the tentacles of the octopus is designed to silence women, so that we cannot speak, and the silencing of women takes many forms, and at work it stops us from complaining. If we cannot complain about any of these things, which we can't because there is retribution built into the system, then it makes us all unsafe, because men and the perpetrators are going to know there is no consequences to their action.
Yeah.
And that makes us more and more unsafe. So it's more than just the victim of what has happened. When she cannot complain, those perpetrators know, and their pals know.
Yeah.
There's no consequences.
Yeah.
And we know that the studies show the only thing that holds men particularly in check is consequences.
Yeah.
In situations where there's none, then all of us are in danger.
Yeah.
And that is
We literally have to create laws to stop them from marrying children.
This is exactly it.
Yeah.
This is exactly it. So we are now living in a situation, in a time where we're seeing the global rollback of rights, which we are, danger to queer people, danger to trans people, danger to women. It's the horror trifecta of rights being rolled back.
Yeah.
The canaries in the minds of showing us where we're at, because all of that is about core human rights.
Yes.
And we are seeing in America the rollback of rights for black populations, black communities to be allowed to vote. We are seeing rollback of divorce rights, of the right to take the pill, any kind of reproductive rights. Make no mistake, that is coming for us. And a part of this, a tentacle or a piece of this picture, is our current lack of capacity to complain at work.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
if you look at what happened to me when I complained at work, or in that situation, I was suspended. And that is to take me out of the mix, but it is also as a warning to anybody else. Do not complain about the system.
Can you give us a bit of it's I find it helpful to have like specific examples to illustrate the point, because what we're talking about is systemic, you know. So could you give us like maybe your example or someone's example of specifically what did they experience, specifically how did you get to suspension? Do you know, or how does one?
So what's important is that and I want to walk a line of respecting the anonymity and confidentiality of the people that I spoke to, right? But on saying that, and this is the problem, we need to talk about this because it is so coercive and insidious and so dangerous for literally all of us. And also, if we don't stop this, a generation of younger people are going into the workplace in which nobody can complain.
Do you want your daughters to be safer in work? Do you want your daughters to have the right to say, this has happened to me? Somebody actually do the right thing. You know? So I wanted to think a very good example right now, it's in the news, is the example of Garda Margaret Loftus. Yes. What a woman.
What a woman.
What a woman.
So you'll know, and your listeners will know, that her husband, both of them are guards, her husband was convicted of assaulting her. And then he was promoted. And then he was promoted to detective and issued with a firearm after she had complained that he assaulted her. So this is really serious stuff.
So we're giving a violent man a weapon now. Great.
So she complained, he was promoted. What's interesting, let's look at what happened to her. And what happened to her was that there were unauthorized welfare checks on her children made, checks on her money. She said her life was made hell. She faced intimidation. She said the process of complaining was as traumatizing as the original abuse. Jesus. Now, what was, and she said she was the problem. That's how she was, you know. And it was only, she said, that she found one person that helped her. And that has been the experience of every woman that I spoke to. So don't forget that the women I spoke to are the ones who have survived this, that are continuing to fight.
Yeah.
And the only reason they contacted me is that a lot of them are currently in the middle of legal cases. They can't speak right now, but they have fought. And the only reason they were able to fight is they had one person who had their back. And that is the difference between it being... And the thing is, we know, even these people, women that I spoke to, every single one of them have had catastrophic health impact.
Of course.
Catastrophic. Some of them have nearly died. And the stories are startlingly similar.
Wow.
And it reads like an abuser's playbook. It really does. So it reads, if you read The Case of the Women of Honour, you're really reading the same playbook that I have been told by the women who spoke to me. Isolated from support. Their work was exploited. A terrible sense of fear and threat. So constantly implied that they were that their jobs were under threat, or that a complaint was coming against them, or that other people knew things that they didn't know.
The fear of that, the feeling that invokes.
Yes, the shaming is really significant, and the undermining and the gaslighting, and a very, very sinister abuse of authority in almost every single case, whereby a complaint might be made up about the person who had originally made the complaint.
Right.
Now, what that tells us is really problematic, because it really tells us, like, not only will our complaint not be listened to, but actually we could be in danger.
Yeah.
We could be in danger for complaining. I heard some beautiful language about, because what we're talking about here is bullying is as a culture in an organisation. And I heard it described as there being shadow values. And I think this is really important because, and I heard it being described as a hidden curriculum. And I think this is a really, really powerful way. It's the normalising of the use of gossip, gaslighting, manipulation, sabotage, and exclusion as primary tools to get rid of the person, or to silence them, or to control them, or to gain power over each other.
Wow.
And this is the space that a lot of theorists and a lot of kind of researchers are looking at. And I love that, shadow values.
Shadow values.
The values of, all of us probably, to our great detriment, have probably been involved at some point in writing up documents of core values of organisations.
Yeah.
What do we believe in? It's like a bingo card of nonsense.
A dream list of such virtuous
stuff. And tick, 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 tick. And
integrity, equality, inclusion.
And then you've got
put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and then you've got EDI, and that sounds great. The equality, diversity, and inclusion sounds fabulous. But none of it means anything because you've got this shadow values. So we've got all of this stuff on the website.
Right.
We're ticking all the boxes, right? But the shadow values and the hidden curriculum are how things really work. And everybody, when you're in a job a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, everyone knows how it really works. Now, I was extraordinarily naive because I have signed up to organisations based on, oh my God, I really believe in this. This looks amazing. And I really, these people are so incredible. And I with all my heart. And then you find, and Sarah Ahmed talks about this, you never really know an organisation until you make a complaint or until you highlight something. And then,
ain't that the truth?
And ain't that the truth? And one thing that comes up quite a lot is so we talked about the physical impact, and it is huge, depression and anxiety and extreme burnout and all of that. But what I think is very interesting is talk about moral injury. And moral injury is in the space of huge sense of betrayal, because a lot of people come into this from a place of authenticity. A thing has gone wrong and I'm going to get support. And victims will often talk about, so victims, and I, again, because I know her well and I just admire her so enormously, I think about Natasha O'Brien, where a terrible thing happened to her, and in a right world you would expect that the system would close around her and support her, and they would go and find the perpetrator, who would be immediately...
If you asked a 5-year-old if you were hurt and what would happen, and they'd say, well, you go to the police and then the person is taken care of and believed, and you know.
And so moral injury comes in then when what you think should happen and what should happen does not happen. And you've got this, it has a nearly an existential impact on people. So you've got a crisis of trust. You don't trust anybody. Someone in authority acts against the fundamental fairness and justice expected. Then you don't trust anybody in authority. Where do you go? Where do you go for help when the people who should help you or should have your back or should have a narrative of care or a duty of care to you actually act against you and treat you like you're the problem simply because you highlighted a problem? And there's a deep psychological wound in that occurs when an individual or fundamental ethical code or sense of integrity is violated. And these are and it's systemic betrayal, because once you have one, say, line manager or manager saying, well, this person is a problem, then what happens in reality and practice is all the other managers, be it through exhaustion or overwhelm, it's very hard to know, they row in behind the first manager. So then you have several managers all saying the same thing and isolating, and the person, then you're up against the system.
Even though there are documents and policies that say this is what should happen, but all of the managers are doing something else. They've all agreed to do this other thing. It doesn't.
And there's this hidden curriculum whereby one manager is quietly saying to the other, well, Karen is difficult.
Yes.
There's a history of difficult there, or whatever it is that is said behind the scenes that would never be said in writing. But it still has a material impact on how you're being treated. And then, of course, that is part of why you're isolated, because then, every workplace, there's no anonymity or confidentiality, there is constant talking. So, if you're out of favour with management, then other people see that, they're not going to support you. And what the research, or my little bit of research, is showing is that even people who support the person are being punished, and there's retribution against them. So not only are they in trouble, but they can't even get anybody to support them. And so this is a really, really difficult thing that we're finding, and the inability to make complaints or be supported in making complaints makes us all really, really unsafe on a profound level.
Profoundly. And the feeling that you have in your body when you get an email from one of them, even if it's about a work thing, because you have had by the time it gets to a complaint stage, because you have had so many negative interactions with different ones, and the disbelief that they're acting against the values that are set on the website, and there's this what did you call a secret curriculum?
Hidden curriculum.
A hidden curriculum that you're not aware of. I'm learning a lot speaking to you. When you even get an email from them, a phone call, so that little ding when an email comes in, your nervous system goes, oh, your body goes into fight or flight. When the phone rings, your body goes into fight or flight. When you hear them walking past your office or close to your office,
are they going to come to me?
What's coming?
Or if you're checking your post hole in there's a brown envelope.
Exactly.
Email.
So your body is on this, it has a severe impact on your health.
It does.
And I don't know whether as managers they know these things and they don't care, or they're uneducated on these things.
So I struggle with this. They should know. A manager should know, because it should be this. So I, to be honest with you, this is where I fall on this. I believe they do know.
Okay.
I do. I believe they do know. And so many of the women who spoke to me told me similar stories, that it very much reads like a playbook. And it's very hard. The stories are so similar from so many different places. It's very hard for me to believe that it's not a playbook. And one of the they were all incredibly powerful, but one woman spoke to me that I spoke to, works in HR, and she and her office had been told by their organisational managers that complaints, it's better to let them go to the WRC. It's cheaper to let it go to the WRC than it is to deal with the issue in-house.
Changing the system within house.
Cheaper. Wow. So what that means in practice is that they are actually, as if informal hidden curriculum piece of strategy, they are engaging in these things. Now, one of the things that people found really difficult was delaying tactics, and Sarah Ahmed talks about this strategic delaying, whereby they're going into the minutiae of paperwork. So, you didn't fill out page 3 so we can't proceed with this. So you have to wait until the next month, until there's another
and that dragging out. You're just dying for this to be over.
Yeah. You just wanted
a resolution, and let me just move on. I want to just come into work. I want to just feel safe. Please don't let this drag on. And I would assume that a lot of people just say, do you know what, drop it.
The vast majority of people do.
Yeah.
Of the women I spoke to, 3, a lot of them are in the middle of cases. 3 are at the other side, and of those 3, one was 13 years. 1 was 9 years, and 1 was 7 years.
I couldn't imagine going through that for over a decade.
And the other ones that are still going through it, or at an earlier stage, it's nowhere near being finished, and they're all 5, 6, 7, 8 years in.
Wow.
So, all of that is designed to make it logistically very difficult to do. And then that's not to mention the money, because you have to go and get your own legal support. It's not to mention then the punishment things that come in. So even if, say, you're not suspended as I was, or complaints made about you as some of the other women were, their lives are made very difficult.
Yeah.
So like timetabling things, or all of a sudden you're audited. All of a sudden things happen, and that because you've worked there for however long, that it's possible for things to be very streamlined when you've got your manager behind you. And in the same way, it's equally possible to make things very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's what all of the women, and I cannot stress to you how broad the array of backgrounds and companies and areas that these women are talking from. So it's almost like there was a conference that all the managers went to and they all learnt about this. But I suppose sometimes when I think about this, I feel very overwhelmed, because it is so difficult to know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And what to do, and how do we support women who cannot talk about this because they're in the middle of cases, and so on and so on and so on. But there's some glimmers of hope.
Right.
So some of the glimmers of hope are, at the moment, there is a special issue of the International Journal of Public Health about how pervasive bullying and harassment is in today's workplaces. So what that means is a call has gone out for research.
Okay.
And that means that it is being researched everywhere. Now, when we hear that a thing is being researched everywhere, then we know that it is a very big issue that's being noticed. So that's really heartening.
Yeah, that is really heartening.
Really heartening. So what this issue talks about is it says it constitutes a serious and widespread occupational health threat.
Wow.
So its seriousness and its impact is being recognised, and I think that that's really, really
brilliant.
Hopeful.
That is really hopeful.
The other thing that's really hopeful is that there is, at the end of this month, at the start of June, there is a global conference called by the International Association of Workplace Bullying and Harassment.
Wow.
And they have speakers going to Canberra at the start of June for
Australia,
from all over the world. So there's a global conference. So again, we're not only just seeing local awareness, we are seeing global awareness.
This is a piece of the puzzle of dismantling the patriarchy, surely.
100%.
Wow. A really important piece.
A really important piece. And, I have no expertise in labour law, workplace issues, and that's just not my area. So I have to take great heart that experts are coming together and they're doing the research. It's happening. I take great heart in that, and I think we all need to.
And we all should take great heart in that for our kids who will be going into the workplace.
Yes. And I think that, I suppose, I was thinking coming up to, what did I want to say to people? And we are slowly putting together evidence that this is happening. So there's a national strategy for women and girls in play at the moment from the government, and it envisions an Ireland where women and girls can thrive in a gender equal society.
Wow.
That is in place in the language. Now, you'd have to say to yourself, that's 2025 to 2030.
Right.
So that's what they're working for now.
Let's go.
We'll
take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. However, we are now in 2026 in a position whereby girls and women cannot complain about sexism that they are. So, while it does feel very overwhelming, we do have government awareness. So we've got a program in place. Hopefully they will listen to that. The other things that we're seeing, there's a group called Transparency International. They've got an Irish office, and they deal and support people who are whistleblowing. And what they've done a very recent report. They found a 70% increase in reports since 2019. The WRC have seen a 201% increase in complaints. So we are looking at a really significant issue. And I really wanted, so those numbers tell us that probably an enormous number of your listeners are encountering or experiencing something in this space.
Right.
So I wanted to say a couple of things about that. I really wanted to say that you're not on your own, because that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
When we think we're on our own, we don't know what to do, and that is a tool and a strategy. So the first thing as women, we say to each other, you are not on your own. There's women out there, and we're all working to do something about this, and that's a very important piece.
That's so powerful to hear that.
Yeah, and it's really important that we say it to ourselves and we say it to each other. The other thing that we are seeing as a little kind of a bright light, the Irish Times did a report on this, and they talked about retaliation in workplace, and they said, and they found retaliation in workplace against complaints, the women have reported negative consequence at a far higher rate than men. So even though men do complain, women, when they complain, get retaliation at a much higher level. So we've got to be aware that there are disproportionate risks to women for complaining. Does that mean that we shouldn't complain? I think it actually means the opposite. I think we have to complain in much higher numbers. And this is, I guess, the final thing. And you're like, oh, thank God. This is
No.
The final thing that I suppose I really wanted to say is that as an activist, but an accidental activist, I didn't really, I thought as an activist I had to be chaining myself to trees. And I'm a fucking princess, and I like my comfort. I was like, I need my comfort. I need my nice things. So I thought, I can never. And also, I was a soccer mom, for a very long time, and I never thought that a person like me would be an activist.
That's shocking to me.
But I think it's very powerful, because again, we silo off these things, and we kind of say, soccer moms can't be activists, and if you look this way, you can't do that, and so on and so on. And I always want people to know that activism does not mean, it doesn't mean chaining yourself to anything. It can mean everything at different times. So when my kids were small, my activism was like, once they went to bed, I wrote some letters. So if all you can do is write some letters and emails to your local TDs, write them. Yeah. Write them every night. 10 minutes, write them. And because TDs and local councillors listen to their constituents. So if you are writing a letter and telling your TD about a problem, then they will listen. And they could even read it out in the Dáil. I've heard that many times where a TD will do that. It's so important, and that's activism. It is activism to go to meetings, but not everybody can because of care duties and so on. Or just exhaustion, by the way, is fine too, not to be able to do all the things. It is, but the other thing in terms of complaint, Sarah Ahmed says this, complaint is writing. It is activating a process, but it's more than that. When we complain, we are saying something is not right in the world. And that in itself is an act of revolution as women. So we can be activists by eating when we are hungry. Yeah. And we can be activists by looking in the mirror and saying, you look fucking fabulous. Yeah. That's activism, because it's an act of revolution. Yeah. We can be activists by...
Because there's a whole system designed to make you hate what's in the mirror.
Exactly. Yeah. We can be activists by being really proud of being 50 and aging, and not being afraid to age in a world that tells us it's weird and disgusting and gross. Yeah. We can be activists by speaking, and there is a kind of a narrative out there that particularly women shouldn't make people feel uncomfortable. It is activism to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I would say people are entitled to feel safe, but we are not entitled to feel comfortable. Nobody is. And so it is activism to call somebody out if they make a joke or that you don't like or doesn't sit well with you.
Yeah.
All you have to say is I don't like that. That wasn't funny. Or very powerful. Why is that funny?
Yeah.
The most powerful thing you can do is, why was that funny? What do you mean by that? It makes people extremely uncomfortable and they will walk away.
Do you know, that is such a good point, because I find I have found a pattern in this situation, and I've spoken to different people about it, and when somebody says something, whether it's a racist thing or a sexist thing or it's a joke at your expense or whatever, asking a question or if it's somebody who is against your message, women, whatever, fill in the blank, asking them a question makes them explain the thing. So you're right in saying, tell me, why do you think that was funny? What part of that was the joke? Where's the punchline? Or like, why did you feel comfortable saying that to me? Like, or when someone says something about it, it's like, why do you think that women X, Y, and Z? Instead of, I think people feel sometimes, I'm not the person to explain this. I don't have all the language. But fundamentally I know it's wrong. Or I know what's right or whatever,
I love this because sometimes we feel we have to have the answers.
We have to have the answers. We don't. If it doesn't sit right with you, it's enough to say to the person in response, you don't have to take this stand and have a spiel ready to rhyme off, quoting bell hooks or Sarah Ahmed, or you don't need to have that. Asking a question in response is enough sometimes, and then walk away.
Or exactly this. And then you don't, even if they say nothing, which very often they won't, but you have taken back you've honoured yourself.
You've honoured yourself. This is the most important thing.
You've honoured yourself. Or sometimes we're afraid, and I hear this from a lot of women, and I am one of these women, and we're afraid that we might cry in the moment. And you know what? Fine. Absolutely fine. Do cry. I know I had an interaction with somebody who said, I couldn't even tell you what they said, but it really, really bothered me. It was about somebody else in front of me, but it really, because it was about a woman, so I was like, that, he obviously thinks that about me. And I said to him, I said, that really hurts my feelings. And I got tearful and my voice broke. I didn't say anything else because I actually in that moment hadn't even fully formulated the sentence as to why my feelings were hurt. I just knew that they were. But actually just by naming it, I something lifted. And I wasn't left with that awful feeling. Do you know the way sometimes you're left with, you didn't say the thing.
You betrayed yourself.
You betrayed yourself, or you feel you betrayed yourself and you walked away, or you didn't call it out, and you're left with that awfulness. And so sometimes even just by naming, that hurt my feelings. Then you've done enough. You've honoured yourself.
100%. Have you taken an oath not to betray yourself?
I haven't.
Well, I've taken an oath, and when I'm speaking with women that I'm in any capacity with, if this comes up in conversation, but certainly in the like forest gatherings or my women's circles, I bring this up for us to take an oath that we won't betray ourselves. So going forward, I vow that I will not betray myself. I have spent long enough doing that. I vow that I will always honour myself. It's the same way that like nurses and doctors take an oath that first do no harm. I say first don't betray yourself. So when I'm in a situation when I don't know what to do, what's my first? My first is don't betray yourself. And how can the opposite of betrayal is honouring, so how can you not betray yourself? How can you honour yourself in this situation,
I love that.
And also to add, when you say, about crying or your voice starts to break, what I know is that crying is your body's attempt at regulating itself. It doesn't actually have to signal upset or hurt, or it doesn't have to signal anything. It's just your body has become dysregulated, and crying is your way of body's. It's one of the ways that our body tries to regulate itself. So thing. When I feel upset, if I see the room becomes uncomfortable, because generally you know, especially if you're in a work setting or whatever, people do become uncomfortable because they don't know what to do with that. Or, you know, if they're defensive, they're thinking, oh, she's crying now and this means that I've done something wrong. What I generally say is, crying is my body's way of regulating myself. I've become dysregulated. This is a difficult circumstance. So don't mind the tears. I'll be fine. And then that puts people at ease of, oh, she's not crying because I've done something wrong. She's become dysregulated. She's identified her own dysregulation. She has that covered. Okay, we can now move on without all of the things that we've attached to crying, you know.
And I love that kind of challenging of the crying thing, because the patriarchy has taught us that this very natural thing,
so natural,
that is a natural form of how we express ourselves, is problematic. And so anytime, that's a piece of activism. And you said to me there, you really caught me there, have I made a vow to myself?
Taking an oath.
Taking an oath. I love that. I never worded it like that, but when I had cancer 6 years ago, and when at the start it looked like it was going to be a terminal diagnosis.
Really?
Yeah, it did. But
anyway. Could you tell us about it?
I mean, absolutely. Check your boobs. So I have no history of breast cancer, and I had no symptoms. So I never checked, because obviously I was not going to get breast cancer because I'm a magical being. Clearly, that is only for other people, not for me. So I was never checking my boobs. But I was the worst is that I was the first to tell everybody else that they should be checking all their bits.
Of course.
But not me, because I was special in some way. But anyway, I wasn't. And so I didn't. So it had spread by the time I've accidentally found the lump. So at the start of that, I went through a time where it did look like it was going to be much worse in terms of the diagnosis than it turned out to be. Now, there's 2 weeks at the start where they say, okay, you have it and it's spread, and we have to do all these tests, and so you don't know. You have Schrodinger's cancer, so you don't know, how good or bad. Is that
what it's called?
No. So Schrodinger's cancer is the idea that it's, you don't know, is it terminal, you don't know, is it nothing, so you worry about every single thing.
Okay.
And so when it turned out to be treatable, which it was at the end.
Thankfully.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I consider myself the luckiest girl in the entire universe, and I absolutely take every opportunity to say to people, check your boobs, check your bits, go to the doctor, and every time I talk about this and anybody hears me, about 2 or 3 times a year, people hear me talking about it, check, go, and they catch cancer, but they catch it early.
Wow.
So this is so important.
Well done, gal.
Yeah, well, no, it's just talking about it. It's so important. It's they who did the thing. But so when when I knew I was going to be cured, they said, you have to get chemo, you have to get radiation, you have to get operation, you have mastectomy, then you've got 1.5 years of targeted therapy, and you've got this and you've got that, and you take tablets for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I am the luckiest motherfucker that ever fucking lived. It was in the middle of COVID, my marriage had just ended, and I remember just thinking, I am so incredibly lucky. And at that point, I didn't word it as a vow, but at that point I said to myself, I am going to advocate for myself with the passion that I advocate for with other people.
Wow.
And that's so.
One of the main things that I hear from people is that I wish I preserved their stories. I can't tell their stories the way they did. I can't sing their songs the way they did. Well, that's where Evertold comes in. Evertold is a legacy storytelling platform, essentially a personal podcast, if you will. I come to you with compact recording equipment, and I sit with the person that you want me to interview in the place where they are most comfortable, and I ask all the questions that you want asked. I can ask them to sing their favourite song, I can ask them to tell their favourite stories, and you will then have that video recording saved in a beautiful treasure box on a memory key, just like this one, that can be plugged into any television, laptop for the rest of time. You will never regret doing an Evertold, but you may regret not doing it. So get in touch if you would like your very own Evertold for you or someone you love. And make sure their stories are not lost to time. Healing Gals Podcast get a discount, so make sure you quote Healing Gals Podcast when you contact me. I'll look forward to speaking to you.
I've always found it easier to be really passionate for somebody else.
Yeah.
And difficult, and that's the patriarchy,
Well,
once more.
Yeah.
So it has been part of my healing to do that, to advocate on my own behalf, and that is an ongoing thing. And I just want to tell your listeners that. So I had a preventative mastectomy 3 weeks ago, and your lovely host was on to me just beforehand, I think, was it?
Yeah, I think you might have been.
Before Japan even. Yeah. So, and Molly said, would I come? And I was like, oh yes. I said, but just say I'm getting a mastectomy. And so we were in touch. Yeah. And then I said, right, I'm better. And this was like a week and a half after it. And Molly was like, I said I can come on Saturday, and Molly said, are you sure you can drive from Limerick on Saturday? And should you? So I went away and I thought about it, and I said, no, I am going to take that extra week. And so here I am today. But even up until now, I'm still pushing myself too hard. I'm still struggling with that programming that's in me, and I think in a lot of women, that we have to go.
Yeah.
And we
have to be productive to be valuable.
We have to be productive to be valuable. Yeah. And I really struggle with the idea of just being. Resting. I really struggle with that. But what I loved is, and it was women who saved me. And I loved that you, as a woman that I hadn't met before today, but in that moment, just on a voice note, and you said, Gal, do you think you might take a little bit of extra time to recover before you come? And I loved that, because that is the power of the community of women, where none of us have to have the answers. None of us have to have all the knowledge. None of us have to, I bring stuff to the table at different times. And this is what I do with the community of women I'm in Limerick, is some days, sometimes, some issues, I am bringing the fire and I'm fucking all over it.
Yes.
And it's great. And the rest of them are like, oh no. And then some days I have nothing to bring, barely my own body, but I can turn up in myself. And I tag them in, and I'm like, oh. And I love that you did that for me in that moment. Yeah. Because obviously even though I chose the preventative mastectomy, but it's still a big deal, and still am vulnerable. And I'm unsure about how to dress and all this kind of stuff, and on how I come across, and I'm relearning all of that. And I just loved that you did that beautiful thing for me. Angel. And it has reminded me once more the power of women, and it's the power of what you do with your listeners as well. And it kind of brings me back to this last bit about when women complain, and it is about this having community with each other and saying, you're not on your own. It is happening to everybody. It is literally not you, it's them. It is the system, it is the structure, but they will try and make you feel like it's not. Yeah. And this applies to complaining in work, but it applies to everything. Women are so fucking beautiful, but we are in a world that tells us we're not. And we're in a world that tells us that we're not beautiful if we have our arms, top of our thighs, whatever. Let's
actually describe what I think we describe when we describe the beauty standard is a newborn baby. Hairless, wrinkleless, smooth, young, small, petite, quiet. When we describe what the patriarchy asks of us as women, we are describing a newborn baby. It's unattainable. We're never going to be newborn, and nobody should want to be with a newborn baby.
And thank you very much. And this is the really key thing. I mean, we are living in a world run by paedophiles that we now know is not a conspiracy theory. Yeah. It's real. Yeah. Epstein files are real. When are all of those people going to be convicted? But anyway,
we believe the women.
Women, and so, but we're living in a world run by enormously powerful billionaires who are all in working in the same circle as paedophiles, who set the beauty standards, and the beauty standards are to look like a teenager. And then, if we did look like a teenager, who are we attracting? Because I am not attracted to somebody who is attracted to teenagers.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's really disgusting. Yeah. And it goes down even to how we're expected to remove all of our body hair and our pubic hair. Yeah. The only humans that have no pubic hair are children. Yeah. And so the beauty standard and the porn industry tells us that we should, to be beautiful, to be accepted, to be normal, look like children. No. Who is finding that attractive? Yeah. And let's call that out.
And no judgment for anyone who is taking part in that right now. I have been that gal. I've wanted to be smaller, hairless, smooth, wrinkle-free. I've wanted that.
Yep.
I was conditioned into that. So like, I don't have any shame for being conditioned into it. It's unavoidable, you know. But when you become aware of this, it's a really freeing thing. Excuse me. It's a really freeing thing that you can say, actually, I'm a fucking woman.
Yep.
I'm a woman. I'm a 36-year-old woman. I'm a 45-year-old woman. I'm a 50-year-old woman. I am gorgeous.
Yep.
I have hair. I have wrinkles. I have no interest in paying thousands of euro a year to look like a baby. I don't want that.
Yep.
So when you get to show up, when you reclaim your power in that way, and you accept that aging is a privilege. If you're not aging, you're dead. So do you want that? You know, like...
And I love this. And I love particularly that you said, like, this conversation is never designed to shame anybody who's doing those things.
Of course.
And I did it for years.
We've all done it. It's unavoidable.
You know what I mean? And the only... And sometimes we stop ourselves having these conversations because we don't want to shame anyone. But I did it myself until I read Caitlin Moran, who's an English author, and it was she who said about pubic hair. And the minute she said it, I was like, oh my God, children have no pubic hair. And when I read that, I had literally just had it all waxed off. And then I was looking at my body going, oh my God, why am I doing this thing?
Yeah.
So it is only when we hear other women talking about it, and when those women go, yeah, I did that too. And, you know, oh my God, now I understand, and now it looks a little bit different now that I can see it in this context.
Yeah.
And things in this world are changing so quickly right now that we actually don't have time to process it. We haven't time to process Epstein because Trump has declared war on everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we don't have time to process that when the next awful thing happens.
Yeah.
And that is part of the strategy, the global strategy. Because
it's bamboozling us.
We are...
To just... You know, and I don't think that any of us have ever actually sat down and thought, why am I removing my hair? I think there's something in the ether about it being unhygienic, but if it's unhygienic for me, why are men allowed to have pubic hair?
Yeah, so it's not unhygienic for men, but it is for me.
I don't think we've ever sat down to actually analyse that, you know, and when you do, and then to add the next layer to it is like every single thing that you have in your body has a function. You know, like I have these hairs on my toes. We'll take them out. These little, I used to pluck them. Do you know how painful it is to take that? It's so
painful.
sore.
Very painful.
And I'm like, you know, but it's hair. Get any hair, get rid of it. To get rid of the hair.
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I? First of all, let me try and heal my relationship with these hairy toes. Why is that hair there? So I went and researched into why we have hair on our toes, and it's actually from there are deadly insects in Europe. Like, we live in Europe, and there are deadly insects in Europe that when they crawl on you, them touching off that hair gives you a sensation there's something on your foot, so you can get rid of that. So it's for preservation of life,
safety.
It's for evolution, it's preservation of health. And then when you look into all the different things that are wrong with our bodies and what the actual function of them is, and you realise there's actually nothing wrong with them, and actually they're helpful for us to have. Like, the hair gives us a little barrier on that sensitive area. It's for, you know, the sweat, and it gets warm down there, and bacteria, and good bacteria, and all these kind of things. When you realise that that's all there to protect you and mind you, why are we putting our lovely vulvas through all this trauma, ripping hair from the roots, our vulvas being exposed to that, rubbing off your jeans? We don't need to do that to ourselves, girls.
We do not.
We do not.
And then there is the piece of, we're told that we need to do it to be attractive to somebody else, and that our worth lies in our attractiveness outside of our body.
Yeah.
And so there's a big piece of activism that I think needs to be done, and I really, really struggle with this myself. And I work on this every day, but to change the narrative and framing around what a desirable body is.
Yeah.
So I always understood, as a child of the 70s and 80s and 90s, I understood a desirable body, that I would have a desirable body only if a man desired me. Whereas I now, as at the age of 50, I'm trying to reframe it. I'm saying I have a desirable body because it does the things I want it to do. And what are those things? Well, I want to be really strong because I want to go to electric picnic with my friends and get drunk in a field for 3 days, which a big gang of us do.
Same.
So but it takes a fair degree of physical strength and wellness to be able to do that, and you've got your rucksack and into the field and so on. So like therefore, can I do that? Yes. Therefore, I have a desirable body. It is desirable to me. But women are told really that the locus of attention needs to be outside of them, and that they don't have value outside unless they're getting it from somebody else. So a lot of these narratives and messages are all tied up with supporting the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And if we are able to unpick those things, so for example, if I don't care if I'm attractive to a man, then that takes away a very significant amount of control that somebody else might have.
Huge.
If I don't care if somebody thinks that I'm a difficult woman, then that makes me virtually unshameable. And if I'm unshameable, then it's very hard to control me.
Yes,
and
correct.
So it's all about these narratives that have been used to control women and contain women. And they start with our bodies, they start with how other people think. But if we stop caring what other people think, now I never understood this until literally the last couple of years.
Go on.
And so again, like cancer, I would say was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was the catalyst for so much change and so much positivity. And turning 50, the best thing that has ever happened to me. Menopause.
A privilege, gal.
Oh
a privilege. I can't wait.
But you know what? More than the privilege of aging, which I am very fucking lucky, but more than being here, menopause is a fucking wonderful thing. Because as your hormonal life changes, your capacity to give a fuck about what people think goes right the fuck down. And it
drops with your estrogen levels.
Thank you. And it is the most glorious feeling. It is every single day I wake up and I think, my God, there isn't a fuck in me. And hopefully tomorrow there will be one fuck less, because, and that means that
minus one fuck,
because it means that I am the center of my day, and I can start doing things that are important to me and that feel good and give me joy and whimsy and laughter and all of those beautiful things. But my God, it's a journey. And so, and I suppose to bring it back to when women complain, complaints are everything. They're not just written at work. They are, when we take joy in our bodies, we are complaining about the system. When we demand respect and honour, we're complaining about the system. It doesn't have to be writing to your TD. It doesn't have to be going out on a march. It's great if it is, but it doesn't. Because by living that truth, we are preparing the way for the generation coming up behind us. We're making it safe for them to do things differently. We're demanding respect for ourselves and them. We're modelling it. And
the best things you can do.
The best thing, most powerful thing that you can do is model what it looks like to be a happy adult.
Not just kids. Tell them, set boundaries, No, let them watch you set boundaries.
And let them see that it's hard. And let them see, and that's when, coming back to complaining, what I would love to see is not less complaints. I want to see, or fewer complaints. I want to see hopefully more, because when our voices come together, we saw in 2015, we saw in 2018, we know that when our voices come together, when we share our stories, it is powerful. At the moment, in terms of this project, we are trying to find, or working with some solicitors and barristers who have expertise in labour law. We are working with some politicians, and we're working with some journalists with a view to trying to get out the stories and the experiences of women across the sector, but to find ways to do it safely. Because of course, first and foremost, each of us have to be safe in our lives. We have to, doesn't matter what kind of an activist you are, you have to be able to pay your rent or your mortgage, your kids, you've got to have a nice life, or it's not sustainable. So first and foremost, keep people safe. Secondly, then, see what we can do about changing the law so that there isn't retaliation against women who complain. And this is only a small corner piece to the wider piece of patriarchy. But if it starts being safer for us to complain and to speak out, then you've got, I would hope, the beginning of a movement. But we cannot start a movement when it is currently unsafe for people to talk and speak out. And so that's what we're doing. If this resonates with anybody, and you want to get in touch with me, I am Karen Sugrue on social media. There's a Gmail address, which is whenwomencomplain@gmail.com. You might like to send in an anonymous story, your name, any details would be held in complete confidentiality and anonymity. It is not about directly going to an individual unless that woman wants to speak publicly, in which case great. And I would say a big shout out to Ruth Coppinger, who is doing the Goddesses work up in Dublin and highlighting stories from all over the country, and she's just
really she's come up in a couple of podcasts.
Incredible. When does she sleep? I hope she eats. I worry about her all the time, but my God, is she doing,
Thank you, Ruth.
She is doing incredible work, and there are so many women out there who are doing phenomenal work. And it is really just about finding ways to get us all together, to push together, And because I've had the experience with the Safe Access Zones, I know that when women come together and share their expertise, I know that we can literally change the country. We've seen it in 2015, we saw it in 2018. It can be done. We will continue to do it. These are weird, dark times, but I believe in the power of women and I believe in the community, and I know that we are going to get through this.
Angel, thank you so much for coming on my podcast, gal. Thank you so much. You're so
thank you so much.
You're so
Thank you so much. Oh my God.
What a way to end our... Gal, this has energized me no end. Like, no end. I'm telling you, I can't wait to tell everyone. All my best friends are all with bated breath on WhatsApp waiting on me to tell them. I've been telling them about you coming in. I'm just so thrilled. So thank you, Gal.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
This was amazing.
Oh, you're amazing, Gal.
I hope I didn't talk the ear off.
Thanks for all your work and everything. Oh my God.
But this is, we're all part.
Well, you heard the woman. If you have anything to contribute, if you want to take part in this research, if you have a story of experience in workplace misogyny or trying to make a complaint in your workplace, you can get in touch with Karen by the email whenwomencomplain@gmail.com. I've put it all in the show notes, so it's all there available for you. The names of the agencies that also support people who are whistleblowers and who make things better for everyone, all of us women who are facing challenges that quite frankly we should not be facing, and in case you can't tell, I'm very passionate about that. So listen, thanks for listening to another episode of Healing Gals podcast. I hope you're all having a lovely day. I hope life is treating you well, and I hope that you know that you're good enough exactly as you are. I'll talk to you next week. Bye, gals.